Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again, and welcome to The Roads with Bo. Today is June 9th, 2024, and this is episode 42 of The Roads Not Taken, which is a weekly series where we go through the previous week's events and talk about news that was unreported, underreported, didn't get the coverage I thought it deserved, or I just found it interesting. After that, we go through some messages from y'all. And those messages are picked by the team, so you're getting an off-the-cuff answer to them. Okay, so starting off with foreign policy. The big news is that Biden went to Europe to commemorate D-Day. Overall, the trip went really well. It satisfied all the goals. There was a lot of subtext in some of Biden's speeches. The interesting thing was that one of the speeches that was clearly about Europe and the situation during World War II is the one that seemed to anger MAGA the most. If you can't tell the difference between your guy and that guy, maybe there's an issue. Just saying. But overall, despite the circulation of some edited video clips and stuff like that, it went very well. Now, on the other side of the aisle, GOP officials are trying to calm the world's nerves about the possibility of another Trump term, and stating that Trump would stand by U.S. allies, which is something that Trump himself has denied in public. I want you to imagine having to engage in a charm offensive to say that your party's candidate would do the bare minimum required by law, and nobody believes you because your candidate is saying the exact opposite. Poland has arrested another group of people alleged to have been operating as part of Russia's sabotage and intelligence campaign in Europe. Russian warships are sailing to Havana. There's a little bit of fear-mongering about this. It doesn't seem to be catching, but just in case it does later, just a reminder, the weapons that you need to worry about, they don't actually have to be close to the United States to present an issue. The fact that Russian vessels are near Havana isn't actually any scarier than them being in the North Atlantic. It's just a proximity thing. It comes up in the media every once in a while. Doesn't seem to be a big deal so far, but we'll see what happens. Moving on to U.S. news. Justice Thomas disclosed some trips that were paid for by a billionaire on financial reports. Are you shocked? I'm shocked. The Kansas Supreme Court ruled the state constitution does not contain a fundamental right to vote. Yeah. Again, be ruled, not represented. The House passed a proposal to sanction the ICC. Biden has indicated a lack of support for this. Lindsey Graham gave a relatively impassioned speech blaming Republicans for the failures to secure the border, which I found, interesting. Trump claimed that he won all of the border counties in Texas. That was a lie and a bad one, unless he meant the border with, like, Oklahoma or something. House Republicans, as expected, issued criminal referrals for James and Hunter Biden, alleging that they lied to Congress. That's part of the impeachment show. Let's see. Schumer is trying to stay out of the battle that is brewing between Bob Menendez and Andy Kim. The reason being is that Menendez is an incumbent. By tradition, you don't... The leadership does not go against the incumbent. This is one of the things that's causing a lot of discord within the Republican Party, is them not abiding by this rule. At the same time, in Menendez's case, no longer officially being part of the Democratic Party, and with the current legal entanglements, that might change. Biden has indicated that he would not pardon his son. And let's see, Cindy Nava won her primary for a New Mexico State Senate seat, which is, that's an interesting one if you want to look into that a little bit further. She's a dreamer. Okay, in cultural news, Trump joined the list of politicians who signed up and joined TikTok after trying to ban it. A bunch of alpha male super studs, after viewing some images of a blonde woman with a visible belly, she's got a little bit of a little bump down there. They declared her fat and ugly. For those who are unaware, that's Marilyn Monroe. So they're never beating those accusations. Okay. So the Federalist went after Dolly Parton. That went about as well as you would expect. We ride at dawn. The short version there was that her brand of Christianity wasn't good. Why you would choose a national icon to do that to is beyond me. Okay, moving on to science news. Will Anders, who took a photo of the Earth that is just world famous, died in a plane crash. He was on Apollo 8. A new dinosaur was discovered in Zimbabwe. Or I guess I should say the fossils, not like a live one. So there's that. Wait for that in the next Jurassic Park movie, I'm sure. Moving on to oddities. Alex Jones has moved to liquidate his assets to deal with the $1.5 billion judgment. Let's see. A woman was declared dead and then found alive at a funeral home. A change of command ceremony at JFK Special Warfare Center had its live stream interrupted by a movie made for grown-ups. There is an investigation underway. Okay, moving on to the Q&A. Why would Sills post a Pride logo on social media? Doesn't this make us look weak? Okay, so the simple answer is that it's Pride Month and there are gay Sills. I mean, that's the simple answer as to why they would do that. That community and communities that are like that becomes the core identity, not the other things. All of those other things are just inclusive of it. So being a Sill is the important part. The other stuff is secondary. So they would celebrate alongside of them. That would be my guess at a simple answer. Doesn't it make us look weak? I mean, if other countries or organizations want to look at the Sills as weak because of a image on social media, I mean, they are more than willing to, they're more than able to do that. I would suggest that if they ever had to counter them, their opinion would probably change one way or another. Not that you don't have enough on your plate, but maybe a series about the Constitution and Bill of Rights. Break it into segments and explain each part so people can see how they are living in evolving documents meant to serve the people. Okay. Yeah. We'll try to do that in July. I don't have any political experience, but I'd like to become politically active. I know you usually recommend starting at the school board level, but how do you prepare yourself for that? I've got my VHS tape of Schoolhouse Rock and a can-do attitude. What's next? I like to be prepared before I take on a new task. Is there such thing as political school? Should I read a certain amount of history, study my opponents, become a member of a certain organization, outreach to prominent religious groups in my area, write down flaws in personal history, work on public speaking? There's a whole list of stuff here, and the answer to this is yes. All of that. And when I say school board level, I really mean county level. It doesn't actually have to be school board, to be clear. It's just easier to start at the local level. As far as getting ready, what I would do right now, because you're obviously not going to be there in time for this cycle, I would go volunteer on a campaign. If you want to know how they run, you're going to get involved in electoral politics, go show up at a campaign, and just offer to help out and see how it works. Okay. My dad and I have disagreed over whether or not Russia is losing its war. However, the position he maintains isn't one I've seen discussed. In his estimation, Russia's goals are: 1. To turn Ukraine into a grinder until Ukraine no longer has enough soldiers to pose a significant threat. 2. Create a buffer from the West, with a belief that it is a bad idea for the West to commit their own troops to the region. 3. Protect Russian-speaking people in eastern areas who have been persecuted under Zelensky. Viewed this way, it's hard to say he doesn't have a point. But can these really be described as Russia's goals in this mess? No. It's really easy to come up with a list like this after the fact. Here's the thing. The goal was definitely not turn Ukraine into a grinder. The goal was to, capture Ukraine. They tried to take the capital, and they failed. It being turned into a grinder was Ukraine's choice, not Russia's. Russia wanted to take the whole country, tried to do it very, very quickly, and failed. This is rewriting that initial failure and trying to make it seem like it was part of a plan. It wasn't. They're in the situation they're in now because their plan didn't work. Their goals were not achieved. Create a buffer from the West. No, they had a buffer. But had they been successful at taking Ukraine, they wouldn't. That's definitely not it. Because they were trying to take the country. The buffer already exists. Them moving into Ukraine would reduce the buffer, not create one. Protect Russian-speaking people, groups in the eastern areas. Okay, so that was actually a stated reason at the beginning. Do I really believe that was a huge part of their initial goals, of what they were doing? Not really. I think it was more of a pretext. But that's me saying it. It was one of their stated goals. I don't buy it, but that one, out of those three, that's the one that could really realistically be considered a goal from the beginning. This other stuff, it's after the fact. They didn't decide to go in Ukraine knowing that they were going to lose and it be turned into a grinder. And even if you look at it from this point in time, they are reducing their buffer. They're reducing their buffer. And again, that grinder, it's not... It is grinding Russian troops as well. I do not see those as the goals. The goal at this point was, when it started, they wanted to take Ukraine. When that failed, they realized that they lost the war. And I know people are saying the war's still going. The war's already lost. When NATO expanded, Russia lost the war. There was no way, from that point forward, there was no way for Russia to come out of this engagement in a better place than when they went in. At this point, I'm kind of leaning towards the idea that this is more about internal political stability at this point. Putin trying to retain power. If he loses here and can't do it in a graceful way, he may not be in power much longer. Okay. It says why zero talk about Biden setting asylum restrictions at the border? Seems like a big thing and a big foreign policy thing. I have no idea why you haven't mentioned it. Not that it's a complicated matter, but just wondering why it wasn't brought up. So I've talked about... Well, Okay, so I've talked about the legislation that this was based on a couple of times. At least two, probably three. And the executive order is it's based on that legislation. My opinion of the executive order is the same as it was when it comes to the legislation, if not more so. I think it gives too much power to the president. Around the same time, there's also a video talking about how executive orders get used politically, and that might be worth taking a look at. I have a hunch about this, and I'm just going to say wait for it. A while ago, in response to a reader question, you said that if the situation over there escalated into a war between Iran and Israel, the consequences for Gaza would be devastating. Would that also be true if the situation in Lebanon becomes an actual war? And how likely do you think that is? The risk of a war between Israel and Lebanon is rising. That is rising. If it was to stay contained, because neither side really wants that war, as far as their militaries, if it was to stay contained, it wouldn't... I don't want to say it wouldn't be bad, because it would, in fact, be devastating. But it wouldn't run the same risk as a war between Israel and Iran. The problem is that a war between Israel and Lebanon may draw Iran in. And if that occurs, then yes, you have the exact same set of issues. Can you explain the political spectrum so that people who have little understanding of the subject realize that what Americans call the left is actually the far right in reality? Just not as far right as the MAGA nut jobs. I have videos on this. If you want to do this simply, you have to draw the line. What is left and what is right? The most unified, as far as when you were talking about internationally speaking, you cross into leftist territory when you reject capitalism. That's when you become a leftist. We do not have a party in the United States, a major party, that rejects capitalism. So all of our parties are right-wing on the wider spectrum. Now, I don't know that I would call the Democratic Party far right. Well, at least not all of the Democratic Party far right on that spectrum, but they are definitely right-wing. You have... That's the thing. Even those people that are seen as left in the Democratic Party, like AOC, Bernie, people like that, they are left-ish. They are closer to the real dividing line than anything else that we have in the U.S. but they really haven't crossed over, at least not in practical political moves. They haven't crossed over into actual leftist territory. So I wouldn't go as far as to say that they are far right, that the Democratic Party as a whole is far right. It is right because it supports capitalism. And then, yeah, when you're talking about MAGA, yeah, you're getting into authoritarian far right that is, it is definitely far right. It's about as far right as you can go. So I'll try to find some of the videos I have on this topic and put them down below. And I even have one that goes through and explains the differences between like socialist and communist and Marxist, and explains all of these terms. And by explains, it's not me, it's somebody, it is somebody who has a great deal of education on the topic doing it. I'll try to find that one too and put it down below. Okay, and then the last question is just where book? 2 words. The book's done. The book is done. We have a book on community networking. It was a team effort. It is complete. It is ready to go. At this point, we are waiting for the right time to release it. That's what's going on right now. But that could go out. It depends on the events in the world. Right now does not seem like it doesn't seem like the right time to put something like that out. So we will, don't worry, when it goes out, you'll know. I won't forget to plug that like I often do. Okay, so that's it. There's a little more information, a little more context, and having the right information will make all the difference. Y'all have a good day.